Today on Building the Open Metaverse.
Just using a single iPhone and soon just any video, we'll be able to take that and then turn that into high quality 3D animation, making it even more accessible.
Welcome to Building the Open Metaverse, where technology experts discuss how the community is building the open metaverse together. Hosted by Patrick Cozy and Mark Petit.
Hello and welcome back, Metaverse builders, dreamers, and pioneers. You are listening to Building the Open Metaverse Season 5, the podcast that is your portal into open virtual worlds and spatial computing. My name is Mark Petit, and this is my co-host Patrick Cozy.
Hey Mark, great to be here as always.
And as we know, we bring you the people and the projects that are at the leading edge of building the immersive internet of the future, the open and fair metaverse for all.
And today we have a special guest joining us on that mission, Tino Millar. He is the CEO of Move AI, one of the most promising startups at the moment, disrupting 3D animation and motion capture with AI.
So Tino, if you know the podcast, we like to start by having you talk about your journey to the metaverse in your own words.
Something you should know about me, I've always been a tech nerd most of my life. I've also played a huge amount of sports. I played a lot of games when I was a kid. And then around 6-7 years ago, I find myself in a position where I was doing my PhD, but then my wife and I, we had our first child. This is around six years ago, and I didn't have time to work out anymore and play sports because if you got kids, it's pretty crazy when you have the first one or if you have multiple. So I canceled all my gym subscriptions and I started working out from home. And I started to use a bunch of apps that say do press ups, do squats, do sit ups. I found it really boring. So I started experimenting with trying to gamify working out from home. So I was trying to gamify capturing my motion in 3D using cameras. So using tech I was working on during my PhD. And I was trying to gamify and capture my motion and put it into 3D. And that's kind of the seed of how I kind of got into this space of trying to digitize human motion and then turn it into a lot of really exciting applications in 3D engines.
So you mentioned that your PhD, so I believe your PhD is in continuum mechanics. Could you tell us a bit about what that field involved and then maybe ultimately how it helped inform your work today?
So what I was doing in my PhD was I was studying here in London at Imperial College, and I was studying material science. So I was trying to understand how materials fracture, like in a lot of detail. So typically when materials break, they'll fracture, so a new surface gets formed. And there's some very specific criteria that inform or determine the phenomena of when the material will crack and then how far that crack will propagate in different types of materials. And that's fundamentally what I was studying. So I was really studying, what are the criteria exactly for materials to fracture? And I was doing that in 3 ways. So I was working on computer simulations. So using numerical methods like finite element method to model in some software that was not the easiest to use. you have to program in Fortran 77 if you wanted to modify anything. So I was trying to model how these materials behave. So I was modeling, using the software. Also trying to study analytically, and then also do experiments. So I was trying to use all 3 methods to really try to triangulate and get to, what are the criteria for materials fracturing? And, I did that for 3 to 4 years, and during this period at Imperial, that's kind of where I really learned to code, where I learned to learn a number of other tools across software and computer vision, 3D simulation, 3D modeling, and numerical methods, which I think really laid the foundation to work on a lot of exciting things after that.
Wow, so you're officially a nerd.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back in the story, so I mentioned I play a lot of sports. So there was one time in my life when I was in my teens, and I was playing a lot of basketball, so much that I was starting to get injured because I really wanted to increase my vertical jump. So I was doing a lot of plyometric training, so a lot of really high impact training. I was doing it quite naively, so I'll just go to my garden, I'll train on tarmac, and I'll be training every day for a long time. Then I started to get a lot of injuries, particularly on my knee. So I started to get tendonitis in my left knee. I think I was around 15, 16 at the time. And and I couldn't play basketball anymore. So I couldn't do what I really loved to do. And, I wasn't a physiotherapist. I wasn't a sports scientist, but my mom, so she used to be a doctor, and she had these, there's this publication called the Sports Injury Bulletin. It's a publication that they gather kind of scientific research and viewpoints from physiotherapists and sports scientists. So I happened to come across this research kind of journal, and I was reading it, and then I started to dig deeper to try to diagnose what's going on with my knee. What do I need to do to rehab? And I started to just go into a lot of detail. So I've always, from an early time, for some reason, I've just really been fascinated with how the human body moves. And I'm just really fortunate to be able to combine kind of that love and that interest with kind of interest I've had in games and coding and technology to then try to digitize human motion.
Many people in the industry view your markerless motion capture technology using, consumer cameras, GoPros or iPhones, very disruptive. So in layman's terms, how does your solution work, and what does it aim to replace? I'm not sure everybody's familiar with the field of motion capture here.
So when it comes to creating 3D experiences, animation, so how objects and how characters move is really central to these digital experiences that people are creating. So think movies, think games, and actually creating that animation is really hard. You've got to be an expert. Most of this animation is created, what I say, by hand or through keyframe animation. So a lot of this animation is created. So you need to often study this field for a long time. A lot of people go to college or university to study how to do animation, and then you got to get access to particular software that helps you modify these animation curves and rig these characters. And so it's essentially, it's a very skilled job to be able to animate how objects and people and characters move. And we just want to make that process much easier. And so what our technology does is we just use consumer grade cameras. So this could be an iPhone, GoPros, iPads, professional grade cameras, webcams, and we help turn the human body, help capture that 2D video and turn it into 3D character animation. And we're using our own technology, which uses combination of computer vision. We use AI, we use understanding of human biomechanics, statistics to ensure that we can just take these inputs from the video and then turn it into high quality 3D character animation to help the lives of people trying to create these 3D digital experiences that need realistic motion.
It's all about precision, and I think Tino is being very modest here because the results that people are seeing from the technology are approaching the gold bar of optical motion capture. So,
Mark, as you say, because creating animation is so tough, over the decades, people have tried to create solutions to solve this problem. And the solution that's gained the most traction is putting suits on people. So you got to put on a special suit. That suit has either reflective markers that then are tracked by special cameras and then track light bouncing off those markers. Or these suits have inertial measurement sensors. And then, using that information, you can try to recreate what's happening in 3D for the human person. But that also has a lot of challenges. Firstly, you've got to put a suit on. I don't know if either of you have tried to put on a motion capture suit.
You should see me in a spandex suit, Patrick.
A lot of people, maybe you sometimes can be quite self-conscious because you've got to put on this spandex suit, and it gets pretty hot in there. When it takes a long time to put on and to calibrate, and then if you have to go to the bathroom, you've got to recalibrate everything. And then we have to get the actors, the talent. They have to go to a special studio often that has this equipment to be able to do the motion capture. And then also it's also somewhat restrictive, so you have to learn how to move in the suit, and so it's hard to capture the true essence and authentic human motion when you put somebody in this kind of unnatural environment, because you have to be in a studio. It's a bit darker in there because you've got to make sure the light conditions are right. You've got to put a suit on people, and so you behave slightly differently, which is why often you need to have specialist actors who are familiar with that technology. And so, it does solve some problems, but there's still a lot of there's still a huge demand in animation that we want to help through the solutions that we're building. And so you mentioned EA, Electronic Arts. So we work a lot with them. They've been an amazing early partner and adopter for the technology. So really, it's been exciting to work with them and working on some really exciting things for their games coming up. And yeah, Mark, as you say, we really try to have the quality as high as possible, whether from a single camera or multiple cameras, to really aid professionals and even a lot of non-professionals who are just wanting to create 3D content. We have users who they're creating memes, they're creating funny dances for their friends, creating YouTube and TikTok shorts. So there's a whole new expansion of use cases that we also want to enable by making 3D animation much cheaper, much more accessible, and much easier to use. And so I think you're going to have a huge explosion of new types of content as different elements of the 3D content creation stack become easier, whether it's creating the avatar, doing the motion, creating the environment. And I think when they all combine together, you're going to see some really interesting content.
So I remember being in grad school and I did great in all the engineering side, but when it came to do our motion capture project and put on that suit, I did not do well. And then when it came to manually keyframe a walk cycle, I did even worse. So I see you're totally, democratizing the creation of this content and doing so with incredible precision. So maybe on that note, your company just launched the Move One app. Could you tell us what's new?
We really care about helping people with their traditional animation process initially. And so we started off with the history of the company to really work on using multiple cameras to make sure we can get the best quality from using multiple cameras in order to create high quality 3D motion that can go into these different digital worlds to power games, to power movies, architecture, models, etc. But the holy grail has always been, can you get high quality from a single camera? So it's something we've been thinking about, something we've been working on for years. And we very recently just now got it to a very compelling level of quality. So just using a single iPhone and soon just any video, you'll be able to, our software, Move One, will be able to take that video from a single phone, a single video source, and then turn that into high quality 3D animation, making it even more accessible. So we've been testing and we've just launched it. So I think when this podcast comes out, it should be, people should be able to find it in the App Store. And we've been seeing some really exciting use cases that my mind gets blown every few weeks of a new use case that I would have never thought of when you just make a tool easy and accessible to people. Like I don't mean to sound grandiose, but I remember, when the iPhone came out and now everyone could take high quality photos and video that enabled all sorts of new types of content and platforms and big companies. And I believe when 3D motion capture, when creating 3D animation becomes hyper accessible, when creating avatars becomes hyper accessible, when creating 3D worlds becomes hyper accessible, you're going to have a massive explosion because now you're increasing the number of creators by 10 to 100x, maybe 1,000x. Because traditionally, because it's so complex, as you said, Patrick, it's only accessible to the people willing to put in a huge amount of effort or have big budgets. But very soon, it's becoming accessible to everybody.
3D animation, some people may look at this as a niche, but you believe it's a major market. So, what do you think is the current size and importance of that discipline?
I'm sure a lot of people that listen to the show have watched movies with 3D characters in them, like a Marvel movie, or have played games with 3D characters. Those characters move in 3D, and they need 3D animation to power that. And increasingly, games and these experiences in these movies are becoming, high fidelity and are having increasing levels of engaging content. Like some games are like semi-movies, they've got cutscenes, multiple characters. All of that needs 3D animation, and creating 3D animation is really tough. So there's a huge industry around creating this 3D content, and 3D animation is easily over $10 billion in terms of kind of all the effort that goes into creating this. And so we, our goal is really to expand the market and to make it even bigger. I believe that soon people will be engaging in 3D content creation, but they won't be calling it animation. They won't be calling it rigging, because it's all happening behind the scenes. Just like when you take a photo on your phone, you're not thinking about like photography, like in the classical case. It's just taking a phone. You just press, record or capture, and then all this auto-focusing and all this light balance is happening automatically. And people are like professional photographers, compared to what you call professional photography a long time ago. So we just want to really expand the market, make it really easy, while also making the best tools to help the traditional 3D content creators like EA and other games companies and other film and TV studios, architecture companies. And already we're seeing the signs of that. So there's some exciting consumer apps which will be integrating some of this technology for sports and for kind of viral dances or emojis and different avatars. So we're already starting to see that kind of mushroom begin, and really excited to see how the market evolves over the next 12 to 24 months.
So I wanted to ask, when you're looking at this markerless capture, single camera, are there any theoretical limits? Like, do you think it will eventually be able to reach things like muscle and cloth?
The areas that we really focused on is, as I mentioned, getting the accessibility, even higher. So making it as easy as possible to go from idea to creating this 3D animation. We're beginning with turning images and video into 3D animation. And so we're going to keep working on pushing the quality, making this real time on device, and just making that whole integration into different characters easier and easier. But there's a lot of different ways to create content, and you don't necessarily need to use a phone in the future. So something we're working on is thinking of a multimodal approach to be able to create animation. So using text prompts and using other modes of inputs, whether it's images, video, text, different style filters, so that you can go from idea to create that 3D content as soon as possible. One requirement for that is a big database of understanding human motion. So something we plan to launch next year is just using our technology and going around the world to capture 10 million plus and types of human animation. And so really trying to digitize human motion and code it in an efficient way.
Let's talk about a more delicate topic, which is the potential impact if you successfully manage to democratize these very complex techniques and put it in the hands of consumers. How can professionals embrace these changes and this technology? What's your point of view on that?
We really want to expand the market of people creating 3D content. So we're all about, just making it easier for people. And so we already have great adoption in the games market. We have around 10% of games companies adopting us, and we're already seeing new use cases, like I mentioned. So we've got a real-time motion capture system, for example. We're seeing sports fan engagement activations, use cases for it. We're seeing kind of fashion, retail use cases for it. We're seeing use cases in theme parks where you can have these immersive experiences, real-time location-based experiences, whereby you can puppeteer a Disney character or some other character. We're seeing consumer apps that are able to launch. So I really think it's just going to enable more growth. And I think with AI and a lot of technology, it's quite easy to be very fearful that it takes away jobs, but in so many cases, if not most, it does increase there's a lot of value created. And so there was always naturally a bit of disruption, but overall, a lot of value is created, a lot of use cases are created. And so it's a really exciting time, I think, for people who are tech savvy and willing to be open-minded and try new things as well.
I'll add a little bit of a follow-up question to that, because we've had on the show Timo from Ready Player Me, which also is super disruptive technology in terms of avatar creation. We've had Amit from Luma talking about 3D captures with the nerves and now motion splat. So you talk amongst yourselves?
We do talk, like the companies do talk. And like I mentioned before, I think you're going to have this compounding effect where all these, creating 3D content is really hard. People haven't done it before. I suggest you try it and you realize how hard it is. And there's a reason why games and movies are so expensive to create, is because that tech stack is incredibly complex, much more complex than a 2D workflow. I believe a lot of us, we're working to create tools that integrate with each other. And so as people start to integrate them, and we're already seeing early versions of that, you start to get really exciting use cases. You start to reduce costs in production. You start to power even high fidelity content and more exciting use cases.
Tino, I wanted to switch gears a little bit. So actually, this morning here at Cesium, we had a bunch of recent software developer graduates from Zipco Wilmington, and I told them that we were going to talk today on the podcast and that you were a great technologist, but also a great entrepreneur. So I wanted to ask you a bit about entrepreneurship. I mean, first, just congratulations on the recent $10 million funding, especially doing that in 2023. Could you share a bit about kind of what the sales pitch was and what the use of proceeds you think will be?
On our roadmap, as I mentioned, we're launching Move 1. So we're launching the single camera motion capture tool to market. We have a multi-camera solution as well. We have a real-time motion capture system. And then we're offering APIs so we can integrate this with Ready Player Me and with many other parts of the tech stack. And we're already getting early signs of, okay, this is not just professionals using this. These are not just animation professionals. These are 3D artists in general. These are hobbyists. And we're starting to see consumer companies with hundreds of millions of plus active users starting to use this for user-generated content. So that's something that we're really excited to start seeing our partners launch from early next year.
Who is your main competitors and how do you differentiate yourselves?
We were just really focused on our users and helping solve their problems. And so right now their problems are not being solved by anyone. A lot of people are still doing a lot of animation, painstakingly by hand using keyframe animation. With no disrespect to people in the animation industry, it feels like more tools can be created to help animators and to be able to help other people do animation. And so we're really focused on just making the product, making the user experience, making the animation quality, making the integration as high quality as possible. So our competition really is the old way of doing things, and we want to bring more people these tools. And we've been really excited with our early community who've been adopting us, and excited to really expand that as we make the product better and better.
Tino, given how disruptive your technology is and the growth of the company, I'm super curious, just like as CEO, where are you devoting most of your time and attention?
The filter is you end up working on whatever's failing. And then once you fix that, you go on to the next thing that's failing. So, it does tire on you sometimes, but the thing that keeps you going is the mission and seeing what your users, see your hardcore users who love the product, seeing them gain success and seeing them value all the blood, sweat, and tears. So right now I'm really focused on really digging into the product and making sure you can go from idea to animation and your end content as quickly as possible. So at least at this moment in time, we're really focused on the Move 1 product and products in general.
What do you think is your biggest challenge in the role of a leader of a company like Move.ai?
It's like the mentality to keep going when times are hard. I'm sure both of you, maybe are in the situation now or have been in the situation in the past. You think it's not going to work out and you just got to push through. You just got to really work with your team, work with your talented team to fix the problems. Then you might fix it for a while, things are good. And then you come across another big roadblock. And then you come across another roadblock and then you just keep getting, you just keep going. I remember in the early days of Move AI, so, we had this crazy idea to help people generate 3D animation from video. And we shared early versions of the product to some very big customers and you kind of get punched in the face because they say the quality is not high enough. And then you really work on that for 3 months, 6 months, and then you finally think you've cracked it. And then you show them another version. They say the quality is still not high enough. 2 years later, we cracked a threshold of quality that can actually truly help people in their content creation process. And so, yeah, at least for me, it's, you got to keep going when times are tough.
So what about culture, right? I think culture is hugely important to building a great organization. How would you characterize the culture?
A lot of our team are actually not from the animation background. So we try to bring in people who are extremely passionate about what we can potentially build. We've been really focused on bringing in these types of people who are really dedicated to the cause. But what has been interesting is, we've come as outsiders a little bit into this industry. Like very few of us have, were animators. Very few of us came even from the games industry. And so I hope with this fresh perspective, we can make the best product for our users, because we're not really encumbered by any traditional ideas. I think we really want to leapfrog and go, years ahead with this product. And so, not just doing incremental improvements to the old way, but really make a radically better way of doing things.
Another tricky question. I'm sorry, Tino, I'm going to get you through all of the hard questions today. So as a person of color in technology, have you faced additional challenge due to your ethnicity? And the corollary question is, what is your approach in your own company to diversity and inclusion?
I think I've been very well respected by people in the industry. I know the culture here in the UK is maybe a bit different to North America over there. It's the UK has had a lot of diversity for a long time, and so it's a bit more accepted over here. So at least in recent years in professional life, been very well respected and not really had issues, but I've had experiences, as a kid where had potential violence threatened at you. But I'd say in professional industry, not really, being really well respected. And what we do at our companies, we really just focus on merit and focus on what people can bring. Just naturally, we've got a really talented team of people, all sorts of different backgrounds. I remember in the early days, one of our key employees, I found him on GitHub. We were just, I found some code that he had, and I went on his profile, and he said he was looking for a job. We got connected, and he was just, he was this smart kid in Moldova. He got impacted with this war that's going on around there. We've moved him across Europe, but we've just tried to find the best people who are really passionate about what we do. We had a similar case with an early employee who came to the UK from Egypt. So the UK also had really good programs for bringing all sorts of people from around the world who are talented into the country. And so we really just focus on getting people who are passionate, excited, and just focus on their merits.
So Tino, it's not your first startup journey. So if we look back on your previous entrepreneur endeavor, any key lessons learned you want to share?
So I remember one company I worked on and started. It was a nanotech business. Key learning from that was, it's incredibly deep tech at a complete wrong timing. Needed incredible runway to make work, and so really getting the timing right, I've learned is incredibly important, because as they say, I think in VC is that the wrong timing is the same as having the wrong idea, essentially. And so timing is really important, and so I think we've been really fortunate with Move AI, and there's a lot of foundational technologies, particularly in AI, that we're just building on top of to bring even more incredible tools for our users. So getting the timing right, also just not falling in love with the technology, but really caring about our users, our customers, and what they really need. I definitely, with another company, I've made the mistake of falling in love with the tech just because I'm a nerd and I love the technology. So there's so many paths to failure with a startup, and so experience in failure does help. Ultimately, you're not trying to fail. But I think all those experiences definitely do help.
So Tino, we have a tradition on the podcast where the final question is if you want to give a shout out to any person or organization.
So doing a startup, doing an impactful venture of any sort is really tough and needs a lot of sacrifice. So I know that I've had to sacrifice, my family sacrificed a lot. So definitely a big shout out to my wife and our children who've been incredibly supportive. Also, we've got an incredible team here at Move AI who also sacrifice a lot and who are really bought into the vision. And so really a huge shout out to the team that we have here. And also we've got some really early adopters and customers who, without whom, we wouldn't have the feedback and we wouldn't be here today. So thanks a lot to our early adopters as well.
It's clear, at least to me, that Move.ai has enormous potential to shape the future of digital animation, and you're pushing the boundaries of replicating human motion with AI, which, as we discussed, going to be hugely important. It feels to me like you're an ambitious yet well-grounded CEO. You have a bold vision, and you are on the path for practical execution. So we wish you to fulfill all the promises of all your technology, and we wish you great success. And of course, a huge thank you to our ever-growing audience. You can reach us for feedback on our website, buildingtheopenmetaverse.org, as well as subscribe to our LinkedIn page, our YouTube channels, and on all the podcast platforms. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Tino. Thank you, Patrick. We'll be back for another episode of Building the Open Metaverse.